one hell of a chapter this week because we have one hell of a revelation. Scopper Gaban made some hella interesting moves, and Lord Emu, what? The potential final villain of the story, Lord Emu, has made one hell of a play on Elbaf. If Emu is the final villain of the story, I like the fact that Emu is making moves now and not, let's say, making moves last arc 30, 40 chapters left, and then now Emu does something. No. In fact, you can argue when Lucy was destroyed, that was Lord Emu making a move. But now we have Emu taking over Gunko's body, and Gunko remembering who Brook was. Crazy stuff there. How did Gunko forget in the first place? There are a lot of things that are going on, which is why I said, you know what? Aha! I gotta do me a video review for this chapter of One Piece. A lot of it you could argue more theory oriented, but we'll get to when we get to it. That being said, the chapter was that good to where I'm like, I need to do a video breakdown of various things for this chapter. So, as per usual, if you guys don't know, we're gonna break this down by the three main components of the chapter. We have the pace and chapter structure, we have the character components, and we have the story progression components for this chapter. First and foremost, the pace and chapter structure for the chapter One Piece. Very simple, straightforward, about four main components for this chapter, which is, I think, very, very good. Where essentially you start off with the Scopper Gaban situation versus Summers. Then we do cut over to where Killingham or Killingham. We do cut over to where he's at, and he makes the final preparations to set the entire library on fire. Now, I do have hope for this, but I'll get that later. Then we cut over a brief second to the Elbaf village where Jewel's staying in, and then they're lamenting over what's happening right now. And then they cut over back to the situation with the kids, with Gunko and company, as Scopper Gaban runs in there like a madman. And then it ends on that note where essentially Scopper fails to save Cole and the kids. Chopper flies after Gaban as he's falling, and then Gunko, after the cries of daddy by Colin, well, she remembers Brook, goes over and shut it down. In comes Lord Emu. So those are the four sections of the chapter. 1 and 4, of course, are the biggest sections by far in the chapter, and 2 and 3 are pretty small sections, but I'll still argue sections nonetheless. Overall, this is a very good thing for the chapter. I say it time and time again. I'll say it again here as a reminder. I think One Piece chapters are better when the pace of the chapter and the structure of the chapter is more simplistic and there's less components. Oda likes to jam-pack a lot of information into a panel and a page. He's changed over the course of time, where in the past, let's say if you go to the Enies Lobby chapters or the Water 7 chapters or the Baratier chapters, the way those chapters are drawn, like from page to page to page, is very different than how things are now. Where I suppose him and the editors, they feel the need to maximize as much of the page as possible. So that's why like less of that, for the most part, I think is pretty good. An example of that, well, let's say be chapter 1045, when Luffy showcases crazy Gear 5 shenanigans as Kaido. That was a fight-focused chapter, and it was way less cluttered, and it was one section. That was, in my personal opinion, one of the best chapters for pacing in modern-day One Piece. This chapter is not that, of course, but it's an example of what I think is like the top, the pinnacle, 10 out of 10 in terms of modern-day One Piece pacing structure. But this chapter, 1149, for the pacing structure, I'll say is very good. After this, we have character components for the chapter. And for character components, we have a few characters of note here. Number 1, Scopper Gaban. Scopper Gaban shows off more what we saw in the last chapter, where Scopper Gaban genuinely has the ability, somehow, some way, the ability to do lasting damage to an immortal. Now, he does say that he's rusty. So keep in mind that like many characters in the world of One Piece that are older, when they are older, they're not in peak form. There are exemptions, like I would argue Big Mom, of course the 5 Elders, but these characters tend to have other things that are going for them that allow them to utilize their maximum powers at their very old age. But more often than not, characters like Rayleigh, characters like Garp, characters like Don Chinjao, now we have Scopper Gaban. Many characters that are older, they always point to their age hampering them in some way. Now you may say, okay, hold on, time out, King. Maybe he's not actually rusty per se. But to be frank, when he fought against Luffy, to be fair, it was the play fight. But he didn't say, oh, I'm rusty then, even though he was going hard with the Conqueror's Haki on the key, slammed it down. But the idea is, I think, pretty simple, that because he's older, he can't utilize maximum power like he used to anymore, which makes sense. But that being said, he is still somewhat comparable to Rayleigh. In the chapter, officially, they even say, and I quote, he's the left arm of the King of Pirates, the counterpart to Rayleigh. So Scopper is Rayleigh, but on Elbaf. If Rayleigh was on Elbaf and had a kit on Elbaf, the exact same things would play out. And if Scopper was on Shibuya Archipelago, then those same things, the Luffy and the Strike Crew, would play out the same way, essentially. There is the minor claim made by Nami that Scopper was pushing around Zoro and Luffy agenda. At the same time, I'm not too surprised. Someone like Luffy could beat his former master Rayleigh. Though someone like Zoro, I don't see it being the case at this point in time. You can see, like, let's say my power scaling earlier in the year, where I kind of have Rayleigh over Jinbei, Sanji, and Zoro. So when it comes to pushing around Zoro, that I'm not surprised by. And Zoro will be there, of course, on that level, but not yet. But Luffy, I do have stronger than Rayleigh, and then by proxy, Scopper as well. Scopper is still showcasing something that we haven't seen be utilized by any person living outside of arguably Shanks, but not necessarily confirmed Shanks. So Scopper displays a new move called the Axe Symphony, where we see Haki on his axe. His axe appears to be hardened, and then Summers gets severed from like the chest up. From the chest up, he gets severed. We see what appears to be a bolt of Haki lightning on the bottom half of Summers' body, and then the top half, chest up, there's another bolt of lightning. So it's like the way Scopper swung, the bolt of lightning kind of tracked his swing, and it's on Summers' body. Summers coughs up blood, and he's taking damage, a lot of damage. He can do lasting damage to an immortal. And it appears that Scopper Gaban would have done the exact same thing to Gunko. He could have actually stopped the fire from burning the library, saved the kids. Scopper could have essentially ended Elbaf right then and there. He could have shut down the Holy Knight's activities right then and there. He could have. But because of the threat that Gunko used on Colin, Scopper saw the future. And I think it's in a very similar way to how Luffy saw the future in Marineford when Mihawk was going to cut his arms off. It's very similar paneling, but Scopper saw the future. And even though normally, you know, of course, being a hardened pirate, he would say, tough it out, you know, like suck it up. The fact of the matter is that Colin and his kid and Gunko was willing to stab. I mean, we see Gunko effectively stabs Colin through the throat. The folly instincts of Gaban take over. And even though he knows what this means for Elbaf's future, he just can't bear letting his son die for the sake of Elbaf's future. And then he takes the blows from Gunko. So in terms of character, obviously him being a good parent is nice to see, especially when you have, you know, a lot of parents nowadays in the world of One Piece that are deadbeats. Deadbeats do get buffs in One Piece. In One Piece, only in One Piece do you see the father never coming back home after getting the milk, and he chose to not come back home. He dipped purposefully, right? Yeah. It's only in One Piece where that move is a buff for your legacy. It would make the Lannisters proud. Regardless, though, we are getting more content on Scopper because Scopper is rusty, but still can do what he did against Summers. On that note, Summers himself, we also get character for him. Two things, we're gonna find out more attacks that he has, or more thorn abilities, where he has thorn installation, where it's like a barrier of thorns, a play on installation, you have thorn installation. Then you have the Thor hunt, sort of like a river of thorns that track and try and kill you. And then the Crimson Lotus Hell, where it's a almost like homage to Impel Down level 1, where the floors are covered in all these thorns, briars, so you can't step on them. With this guy, the images of Kurama from Yu Yu Hakusho always just flashing my mind. He'd be proud of his techniques, at least. His character's dog water, trash. In fact, I'd really love for this guy to get that medieval Aztec treatment. He should be tortured and brutally executed on Elbaf. Yes, he really should have. However, can we judge dread a dude? I don't think so, because even after Scopper severs him from the chest up, we see him with thorns going through his face at the end of the chapter, just saying, ow. The immortality factor is still present. Scopper did say that he was rusty. Let's say if he was younger, maybe let's say if he got some more training in, maybe he could do it again like he used to. Here's my assumption. The reason why Emu shows up at the very end of the chapter is not because of Gunko having her mind remember Brook all of a sudden. No. I think it involves Summers, where Summers was getting crushed by Gaban to the point where Imu could actually feel that, because Imu is attached in some way to all the Holy Knights, or at least most Holy Knights, you could argue, and of course the Elders. So once they started to get clapped in earnest and they couldn't regen, Summers, his situation, alerted Imu in some way, and then Imu took over Gunko to see what was going on. That's why I think Imu's first text bubble is over Summers when Imu first talks. So Summers' plight, I think, was what actually alerted Imu in the first place. After Summers, we have our good old boy, real quick, Brook. Brook does know who Gunko is, or at least he's kind of putting it together in some way. He's not too sure. He does say that the resemblance is uncanny, and he's trying to really think about who Gunko is. So in terms of character, this is hinting on flashback stuff that probably precedes Brook's days as a pirate, because we see in that minor flashback with Gunko, and Gunko herself is being number 4 for character. Gunko recalls when you have Colin saying daddy, father, she remembers her yelling father and crying too at one point, and that memory kind of shocks her, like, wait, hold on, where's the memory coming from? And then we have the image of Brook talking to what appears to be a much younger version of Gunko. So this is like 70 plus years ago, essentially. He's saying, well, it's my dream to be a pirate, you see. So when we see Brook in the flashback, Brook is with Yorkie pretty much early on off the gate. And we know that Brook, before he was a pirate, he was a leader of a battle convoy for a certain nation in the West Blue. What nation exactly? It's unclear. They don't tell us. We also know that the arrow knot strike, the sword technique, where Brook is so fast, he's already cut you, and you don't even know that you're cut until he does the sword sheathing technique. Boom. Hanauta Sancho Yahazugiri. That move was not called that technique beforehand. We find out during the fight against Ryoma that actually it was called the Requiem La Banderole, where that technique he was so good at from his home country that they renamed it to the arrow knot strike. And what's interesting too is that both Gunko and Brook, they seem to use fencing style swords. So when you have Gunko take out what appears to be a sort of, I would say it's a rapier. It's a giant rapier that she makes and she puts against Colin's throat. Gunko with these arrows is pretty swift too. Gaban is no joke when it comes to speed and power, for sure. But even Gaban couldn't keep pace with Gunko, which is on the arrow. She darted over immediately towards Colin's throat and had him by the neck. So I'm not necessarily saying that she is a swordsman, but I think that there could be some lingering things about her combat style that may hint at her being a member of that country, that Brook was a member of that country a long time ago. Now, it could also be a case here where maybe it involves Yorkie too, where there were theories, because we did a video, I think a few weeks ago, over here, boom, check it out. Who is Gunko? There are many theories about who she was. She could have been Guinea's clone, Koala's sister, but there are also ideas like Brook's daughter or Yorkie's daughter. Those latter two are way more probable now. But my guess here is that she was probably a member of that nation, and she knew Brook a long time ago, idolized Brook, because maybe Brook was a very famous person in the home country of his. And maybe Gunko herself is also a royal from that home country. Every whole knight we've seen so far in the story is a saint, at least in real time. So former Supreme Commander of the Holy Knights, Garling, is a saint. I believe that, even though it's not stated directly, I think, Shamrock should be a saint. Kiringram or Killingham is a saint. Summers is a saint, but not Gunko, which means that Gunko's origins were probably very similar to what's going on with, let's say, Loki, where Loki was being recruited as a Holy Knight by Shamrock and Gunko, even though he's not a member of the Holy Land. And he is Elbathian royalty. But there's a good chance, like, if you're putting all your money on this, you have an over 50% chance they're gonna win, where she is a royal. I know some folks in the chat during my stream said that she could have actually been a ruler of the country that Brook came from. She ruled at some point, because the idea is that the way they'd probably gain access to Gunko, the Holy Knights and the Elders and so on, the Celestial Dragons, would be through the Reverie. The Reverie would be how it's done. Reverie, Someone's like, hey, yo, I'm gonna capture you, enslave you, and you can't say no. So she's crying father. Is it because her father is dying, or because she's being forced to be in the Holy Land, and then some shenanigans happen, memory was altered, and then we get to a point where Gunko was, whether it be dealt through powers, assets, someone saw what she had in terms of potential, and then they made her to a holy knight. All that could stem from a reverie gone wrong. A reverie gone wrong like probably over 70 years ago. Yeah. So Gunko as a character is a lot more interesting now. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you, during the chapter reaction, she was very irredeemable because she was gonna kill a kid. Like, she was hell bent on stabbing this kid through the throat. Like, that's okay. That's But ever since she grabbed her chest 2 chapters ago, she grabbed her heart after she kicked Brooke. The path for redemption for Gunko's character was there. Given Oda's writing, it makes, I think, a degree of sense, because you see a lot of times with certain female characters, prominent female characters in the future of their arcs, but characters like Vivi, characters like Nami, characters like Robin's a big one for sure, characters like Viola, Baby 5 too, right? There are many female characters in the story One Piece where they are villains. Perona too, where they're villainesses? Oh, you get what I'm trying to say here, okay? They're bad people, but there's always some path to where they can be redeemed in some way. And we're seeing it here with pudding, right? We're seeing it here again with Gunko. It's one of Oda's go-to for a lot of the women in One Piece. Right now, things are a bit sketchy though because Imu, but Gunko will get redeemed. And the last character is Imu, for sure. Imu, simply put, is able to take control of Gunko. And Gunko's hair seems to get longer. Now, unless she had a bun hidden in her hat somewhere, which I think is very unlikely given her style, I think that her hair grew longer because of Imu's influence. And if that's the case, is it because, well, one, is it temporary or is it permanent? And then two, is it also indicative of Imu's own attributes? You have to wonder. It all kind of ties to why Imu seemed to want Vivi among the pictures of Luffy, Blackbeard, Hoshi. It was Vivi's picture that Imu kept. And then also, there's a tie to Lily in some way too, Vivi's ancestor. If Gunko was a slave in the Holy Land, probably was, and she was taken from her home, maybe Imu was the reason why there are a God Knight now. Because Imu chose Gunko specifically, for whatever reason, as a host vessel. It could be the case here, where every person that is marked with the mark of Abyss could be taken over by Imu. But if that's the case, you have to wonder, hold on now, why didn't Imu make a move during Agate Island? Though to be fair, given what's actually happening in the Holy Land, okay, I can understand why Imu said, I want to take a seat back. According to Imu, what's happening in the Holy Land right now is crazy stuff. But at the same time, Imu freaked out when the 5 elders came back to Holy Land, and Imu just got a whiff. There's a got a whiff of that Joy Boy hockey and just collapsed. So you would think immediately, okay, whoa, where's Jay? I'm gonna go there right now. There are things you have to question and ponder about, well, why did Imu do this and that? If Imu could take over other Holy Knights' bodies, and it could just be Gunko. It could just be Gunko for whatever reason she qualified. The character section is actually pretty long because I kind of yapped on for a while. It is what is there. In terms of character, you could argue it's not necessarily that great, but I think for the future it has the potential to be really something spectacular. And now we have the last component for the chapter review, which is the story progression components for this chapter. So the first primary thing for story progression is going to be, of course, Gaban taking care of Summers. Summers could not handle Gaban. I would say that this is indicative of how insane Roger's crew was. Now, you could argue, well, okay, Gaban kind of snuck him in the last chapter where, because we only see one axe on Gaban, even though we don't see it, it's very likely that Gaban threw his axe at Summers' hand, and that's why it just kind of disappeared. He's now going just one axe to take care of business because he threw the other axe. So you could argue, okay, fine, Summers is not at full, like, he got snuck first time round, but he got diffed afterwards. But would he actually get diffed in the same manner if he had both his hands? Fair question to ask, honestly. But I would still say that no matter what, Gaban is better than Summers through and through, handily so. This is like a low mid diff, not even an issue, honestly. This is also indicative of where some of the Holy Knights stand in power. I've said before in the past that among the Holy Knights, I can only really see 2, max of 3 being at Admiral level. And then that's really it. I don't see other Holy Knights being as strong as the Admirals. Also, let's say 2 max, 3 max. That's really it. And it looks like Summers is not one of those guys. Because I don't think Gaban could do this sort of work and damage to an Admiral so casually. No. Absolutely not. So let's argue that Summers is some sort of midline. A midline, not a baseline, a midline. So you can argue that there are going to be Holy Knights, a few, that are going to be stronger than Summers. Way stronger than Summers. Like I say, I would argue Shamrock. You can argue that Gunko is stronger than Summers now. I think it's fair. And then when it comes to other Holy Knights, some could be even weaker than Summers. All that to say is that it does leave, I think, a lot of room for unlikely candidates to take care of Holy Knights. Now, obviously, the immortality factor is going to be annoying to deal with for sure. But at the same time, there is a way to deal with it, because we do see, let's say, with Conqueror's Hockey or Hockey, maybe it's Hockey in general. I'm not too sure. But Hockey is the answer in some way to deal with an immortal. 1. And then 2, other folks with other shenanigans, let's say traveling abilities, extra dimensional stuff with portals, ways to do immortality beyond just Hockey. Someone like Law cuts you to pieces. Doesn't matter if you're really immortal. Your head's over there, arms over there, legs are back here. What you gonna do? This also, I think, indicates that, yeah, when Sabo has guys, Holy Knights, that are coming after him, because what he and the boys did in the Holy Land, which they could be doing now again, who knows, right? Run back, repeat. I'm thinking that Sabo's already stronger than a lot of these Holy Knights, probably the vast majority of them, maybe even all of them. So that is some food for thought. I think Gaban could be a indication of that. Now to this, for story progression, we do have what's happening to the library. And the library, I think here's what I hope. That giant owl in the library, that we find out its name in chapter 1135, Biblo, the Owl Library Chief Librarian. Biblo has been around for centuries, for a very long time. And I would hope that Biblo has a way to save the knowledge, the books, when there's a fire, just all over the library. The way it's happening rubs me the wrong way. If the library and all that knowledge of books is being destroyed right here, right now, in this fashion, I think it's a very lukewarm way for the knowledge of Ohara that we had gotten like 3-4 times saved over. And now we're here, we see how it's all safe and sound and so on and so forth. For it to be destroyed again. No. I think that sucks. And I think the out is the owl, where Biblo, the owl, who's been around for centuries, has an ability to make these books grow into ridiculous size in the first place. Why it's there, apparently, the Giants don't know, but it's just there. So Biblo is a bit of mystery in of itself. Wong Shiton from Avatar, sure, why not? It's there. Potentially, it's also going to be able to save the books from burning. So if Biblo is the reason why the books are huge, then Biblo could undo its powers and the books become very, 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 very small again. So ideally, Biblo could, let's say, have some sort of bag, some sort of giant crate or whatever the hell, and save all the books from being burned, because Biblo would shrink all the books, grab all the books, and then it would just fly away, and then they'll find Biblo somewhere else on Elbath with all the knowledge of Ohara and the ancestry of Elbath stored. That is my hope. To me, I think it's ridiculous to have this thing burn again when we already saw on Egget Island and all the way back in the Ohara flashback with Robin during Ennis Lobby. It'd be ridiculous to have it be destroyed again. Before that, though, for story progression, very important here. And it involves someone I have to pay some respects to, because I went to Japan again, and I'll be going again and again and again. You really get to appreciate how much of the economy, how much of the One Piece economy this man stimulates, and that's Chopper. Because Chopper was definitely running the market for the merchandise. It was kind of crazy. Chopper was running the market in Japan. It was like, god damn, son. I was humbled. I was humbled. I really was. Chopper fans, I apologize. Listen, I apologize, bro. I was humbled. But, don't tell no one. But, he's also pretty damn smart in this moment. Chopper sees Gaban handle an immortal like Summers. And Chopper, even running through the thorns on the ground, Chopper darts after Gaban. And Chopper is so committed to getting the knowledge, finding out how you can take care of an immortal. Chopper is so committed to this that he leaps after Gaban when Gaban is falling down miles probably to the hell area of Elbath. That was impressive. I won't lie to you. Chopper impressed me. I think once Gaban is going to be, let's say, probably in that hell area, saved by Chopper last second, medical attention, you already have Gerd, she's there too, taking care of Loki, right? They're going to find what's going on in the upper area, and so they may try and scramble, but I think eventually it's going to lead to Chopper's going to save Gaban's life, and then Chopper is going to ask Gaban how to do what he did, and that's what Luffy's taking to learn this next level of hockey. And I've said this before, Luffy's going to learn how to use this new level of hockey, and Gaban is going to be the teacher for that. And yeah, I think we are for sure setting that up. And Chopper, listen, I gotta give him his flowers. I do. Whether it be Japan or in this chapter, Chopper was excellent. He was excellent. So after Ronja is called off from the plank, or I guess it's Ronia, because it's actually a Y, not a J, apparently. How do I pronounce it exactly? She gets saved, which is great. And Scopper makes his move to try and save Colin and the kids, but that fails. Gunko gets a W there. But in the process, Gunko recalls the memories of the past with Brook and so on. I guess I already touched on it like a lot in the character component of the chapter, fair enough. So I guess I won't get to it like too much here. But essentially, in terms of story, this is a pathway for Gunko's redemption. And it may also be a very important thing for knowledge on what is going on in the Holy Land, and also having the Strats more invested in what's going on there. One of the things that has to be, I think, done is that the Straw Hats, of course, they care about their own dreams and goals, the One Piece treasure and so on. But we need also certain catalysts to exist to make them move in certain directions. And if they want to go to Holy Land for whatever reason, then part of those reasons have to be personal for the Straw Hats. And Brook being one of those is not something I thought would happen, but I mean, Brook fanboys, fangirls, here we are. He's getting some love. We have to wait and see if there's actually more there, where Brook has to realize that that is actually the Gunko that he knows from X, Y, and Z years ago. Maybe her name's not really Gunko, but either way, he has to know that's her. I'm guessing that that may happen come the end of this arc. That could be another play too, where Gunko does have valuable knowledge and insight that we need on the Holy Land, what's going on there. Let's say Imu, who Imu is, what Imu is, things of that sort. And recall too that Sabo just said that he wanted to have a meeting with Vivi and Luffy about the D-Clan stuff as well. All these things are going to be essentially catalysts for the Straw Hats to care a lot more about the Holy Land activity, which will have them join the battles on the Holy Land and potentially maybe even the final war to like destroy the Red Line, things of that sort. Yeah. Now that Gaban's on the picture for the time being, and you have Summers who's still trapped. You have Killingram like, oh, what? Great Emu! Came in with this energy right here. Like, what is going on? Oh my goodness. Hello? After all that I've given you guys, are you serious? Nah, Emu's here and Emu's ready to cook. What is taking so long? At this moment, the Holy Land is in a sea of fire. Allow Mu to show you the dominance of God. Now, Emu does refer to itself as Mu in the third person. We've seen it before when Emu talked to King Cobra. Second thing though, what the hell is going on in the Holy Land? This is gig interesting because we now know that the Rev have been targeting the supply routes of the Celestial Dragons for some time now, and as a result, there's a lack of certain ingredients, certain items in the Holy Land. Ironically enough, even though the Holy Land members look down on the lower world, they rely on the lower world to sustain their lives and their way of life. Ironically enough, the Red Line is not farmland, not even close. The thing about it too is that we find out in 1126 from Laffy and Blackbeard when they're talking that not only have the Rev been targeting the supply routes of the Holy Land, but also the Bondolas themselves. Most folks that go to Holy Land, they're not doing the Kuma climb. They're not doing the Fisher Tiger walk. No. Most folks, they ride the Bondolas, and it's also their supplies too. The Bondolas are the primary way supplies and folks reach the Holy Land. but they're being targeted, and they actually break down or explosions happen on the Bondolas. So the Bondolas are being targeted relentlessly by the Rev, so that even further cuts the supply lines. So when folks say Dragon make a move, he's been doing that. He himself, no, but his army, yes. Dragon's army has been mobilized for a minute now, doing various things across the entire world, for sure. But when you read this translation, it's not a figure of speech. It appears to be genuinely, there is a battle. There is some sort of war that is going on right now in the Holy Land. This is probably the reason why Shamrock was called back, because of this situation. And then they sent Summers and Kieran as replacements for Shamrock. However, it's so bad that actually we need to recall everybody. Tesla Cybertruck status. We gotta recall every single one of these vehicles now. Orders of Mein Führer Musk. Emu's pulling the same energy. The options, I think, are 80% Dragon activity, 20% Blackbeard, Mr. All Day, Every Day, 24/7, 365s there, Team Blackbeard shenanigans. The reason why I can't go any higher is because there are two paths here for Blackbeard, where we do know that in chapter 11 to 26, in that very same chapter where they talk about the Bondolas and how they're being destroyed and stormed by the Rev, Blackbeard says they're making a plan, they're making a play. There's some sort of preparation they want to have in store. Probably involves Carrion Devon having the likeness of Saint J. Garcia Saturn. Though you would assume that everyone in the Holy Land should know by now that Jay is no longer a celestial dragon, or he's no longer a 5 elder, and Garling has taken that spot. You'd assume that they at least know that in Holy Land. So Carrion Devon's likeness is way more potent or more meaningful in the lower world, in the Blue Sea, than it is in the Holy Land, I'd argue. That's the first thing for Blackbeard, where he's making a play right now against the Holy Land because he sees an opportunity. He's like old school Edge, WWE. On this day, I see clearly there's a chance. Ooh, I see it. But remember that in chapter 1080, when we have that Kobe flashback, Blackbeard tells everyone flat out, and I quote, "I got a plan to turn Pirate Island here into its own country, one that's a member of the world government, and I'll be the king, Blackbeard Kingdom." He says that in 1080. So how then would he be in the Holy Land causing all sorts of chaos and, all this damage when he's also trying to be in their good graces? He wants to be in the good graces of the world government, but also is gonna strike them. So that's why I can't really say it's like 50-50 Dragon or Blackbeard. No, I can't do that, because his plan right now is to have his Pirate Island be a certified world government nation and use their resources, influence, or whatever the hell for its own gains and benefits. But maybe he's like, hold on though, they're right now getting clapped so hard by the Rev. Maybe we do go in there, pull up, opportunist, and then we take what we want. So that's where I think it kind of gets iffy with his activity involved in this. That's what I'm saying, 20% max. And I'm leaning way more towards Dragon and company. I know folks are saying, well, okay, it could be like an Akainu revolt. And I wonder, hold on, do y'all know who Sakazuki really is? If you believe he's going to revolt against the world government? The same thing for Kizaru or Greenbow. Only one admiral, fleet admiral otherwise, only one admiral has the right to revolt. And that's Fujitora. If it's not Fujitora, it ain't no admiral. No revolts are going down there. No backstabbing, nothing. If it's not Fujitora, then it's not Akainu, it's not Greenbow. At least I'll bet on that. I'm betting on purple. For any Marine Admiral revolting, switching sides, Kuzan, of course, one. But number 2, Fujitora, Purple Tiger. That's it. We haven't seen him in a long time, too. So maybe it is him. Maybe he's dropping meters like crazy right now. Right now, he's going hard. And there is this old image that was a promo for One Piece World Seeker, I believe. There was a shadowy figure facing the Holy Land, the Pangea Castle that's on fire. And we've never seen that happen in the story, and in the game, I didn't beat it, so I have no idea. But a lot of folks are referencing that image again. That was a promo for World Seeker. So does that mean something in terms of the video game's connection with this moment? Or is it more like Uncle Ruckus, no relation?
Uncle Ruckus, no relation.
We do know that Emu's going to pop off and do something on Elbaf. Show the dominion of a god, Yoriki Tenkai. Oh, though I do question why is Emu doing this on Elbaf and not on the Holy Land? Show the invaders of the Holy Land the dominion of the god and beat them. Like, is there something that prevents him from showing his ability on the Holy Land? Unless what it's trying to do is do the Lulusia Kingdom situation on Elbaf. Elbaf is so massive. Is it even big enough to actually encompass all Elbaf? I don't think so, bro. If Emu's play is to potentially summon Ancient Weapon Uranus and annihilate a large part of Elbaf, that would be a gnarly play if that's what he's trying to do right now. But if it's trying to do something particular, let's say it's trying to do its own ability, its own power, again, Reality Marble, Domain Expansion, the power of the Mazaku, Super Saiyan Rose, whatever it's gonna do, it's gonna be crazy for sure. Also keep in mind the fact that we don't have our heavy hitters in the arc. Well, we had Gaban, but our heaviest hitters in the arc right now are in the Hell area. That's Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Loki, all in the Hell area, right? So if Emu does do something, it may get thwarted. Luffy's in Gear 5 going like maniacally, Emu's like, oh, joy boy, and then, you know, freaks out, runs away. That'd be kind of crazy if Emu ran. Oof. Either way, I've yapped enough. It's a long video, but of course, more theory oriented for sure. Just want to get these things out there because it's plot progression, but also low key setup for important things in the future, more so than you would think. Chapter overall, 8.5 out of 10 for this week's chapter One Piece. Let me know your stance on the subject matter at hand. If you enjoy your boy's video content, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell to join the notification squad. I'm gonna catch you guys and gals on the flip side.
See you. Bye bye.